Hello and welcome, this is Oshi, and this is gonna be, well, my attempt to create a hashtag, I guess, but more than that, just a question that I have for you guys if you're watching and you would, feel like sharing. Because the other day I was thinking, that how much my life has been changed as a reader because of certain decks, and I don't have a lot to show you as an example to my question, but hopefully that will make sense. So if the description and the title it doesn't make sense and what I'm saying doesn't make sense, please ask a question. So what I was thinking is, which deck was that opened you up to new ways of reading? And by that I mean after you bought it. So it's not like you wanted to learn Marseille and you picked up a Marseille deck and then you fell in love with Marseille. That's all. Of course, it's awesome, but that there's a plan for that. I was thinking more like in my case, and I'm gonna start with the first, and the example that made me think about this is the Oak, Ash and Thorn, which you guys all know. And if you don't have and you have access to the deck, please make yourself a favor and then get this deck. So I'm not gonna go through the cards. I was just wanted to show a few because this is an animal deck, and I absolutely loved the artwork immediately when I saw it on Kickstarter. I was like, watercolor and the colors and everything is beautiful, but I was like, animals, and I'm not an animal deck person. I haven't seen any animal deck before that I was drawn to, and I didn't back the deck, not just because I had no actual experience on Kickstarter, how does it work and stuff like that, but because it was too pricey for just getting it for the art style. So I was like, okay, I don't need it. But the more I saw the deck in other people's videos, I was like, but it looks so beautiful. And then came that chance to grab a few after the Kickstarter was ended. I picked up one without a box with some marks on the deck, which, I mean, if I want to find them, I can see them here. Okay, wrong finger. But, I don't mind. I mean, it's in my hand all the time, so I don't look at the sides. But after I got it and after I started to work with it, I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I'm an animal deck reader as well. So getting this deck, which I got it for the artwork and for the art style, watercolor and whatever, opened me up to think about animal decks as a potential good reader for me, because I was sure I wouldn't read with them. And the reason being because I don't know enough about animals. So I mean, okay, cats, pet snails, I have them, frogs and stuff like that I know about, but the different type of birds, I have no idea. And I always feel like in order to be able to use a certain animal deck, you need to know at least a few qualities of the animal to really benefit from using that deck. It's the same for herbs and gems and stuff like that, at least that's my opinion. But with this deck, I was, I can still read it so well, even though I still haven't learned anything about the animals in the deck. So just imagine how well that would go. But that made me think about what other decks I have that just sort of help me enable myself to get more decks. I think that's one of the reasons. And there are two which kind of makes me feel are fit in a similar space. One of them is the Shadowscapes, and this was the Hungarian edition. And I picked it up because everyone was talking about how they, was it? No, it's okay. How they dislike this deck because the artwork is so detailed and the cards are so tiny. And the Eastern European versions are bigger. So mine currently as a trimmed version just a little smaller than the Oak, Ash and Thorn. So definitely much bigger art piece. But I'm reading in English, and I usually read for other people in English, so after a while the Hungarian titles started to bother me. And even though it's quite an easily readable deck, I mean, it's pretty much, I lost the Eight of Pentacles. It's a Rider-Waite Smith clone, so it's not that hard to know which card is which, except for the Fool, and if you watch my walkthrough after trimming, that was fun. But without the titles, they opened me up more the cards to read with intuition. Because even though I can see that this is the Three of Cups, I would look at the way they interact with each other within the card. You know, I would focus more on the artwork and not on the title. And I really thought when I started to learn how to read that knowing the basic meanings of the cards is absolute must. You have to. If you don't know, you know, you're not a reader. And that's how I thought. You know, intuition just shifted quite quickly, but later. And the other kind of deck that made me read more freely with just my intuition, even though this has titles, is the Spacious Tarot. Because, I mean, it's the Two of Coins, Two of Pentacles. There's not a lot going on the picture at first blink, but there is so many little details that you can, you know, realize and or, you know, notice. And you don't have to necessarily concentrate on the titles, even with something so simple and Peepish with this deck. And this is the Justice. So in a way, this deck opened me up more to the Peepish decks as well, because I was sure that I needed fully illustrated minors to be able to read well, and I still prefer those. But something like this, which is, it's not a Peep deck, but it's Peepish, now I can see myself picking it up. So that deck opened me up as a reader to those kind of, you know, decks, which I guess it's quite dangerous. And the last one is my Deviant Move, and I absolutely love this deck. And I never found the artwork creepy. I know that that's what most people, you know, that's what keeps most people away from the deck. And, you know, if it's creepy for you, then it's creepy. I'm not, you know, saying it's not. It has a dragon. But I always just looked at it and I was like, it's not my style of art, really. Why, you know, it's just, I don't care for it. But then so I blame the community for everything. I kept hearing, I love this one, for example. You know, you can't take your earthly possessions with you. When that is knocking on your door, you have to leave everything material behind. So there is no real point of guarding and hoarding, which I think is beautiful as a message, because it's so true. But so I saw, you know, how much people use it for shadow work, and I picked this up as to be the shadow work deck. And then along the way I realized that I pretty much don't designate decks to shadow work, because if I have to dig deep and answer deep questions, I can pull pretty much any of my decks, or I'm more likely to pull something that I like, the Oak, Ash and Thorn, or the Light Seers, when I know how my connection with the deck works. But this deck in the end became something that I pretty much connected to the 3D, earthly, financial, money questions, because for me this has such a steampunkish feel. So, you know, that's imperial and imperialism and just I don't know, it for me, that's the style that I see in the cards. The colors and just the metal plates, or you know, what it makes me feel like metal plates in certain armors, and just how, for example, the King of Pentacles, doesn't he look like he's a merchant from a very industrial city? I mean, for me, this deck feels very much like an earthly, grounded deck. And usually I read and I look for decks that are more in the ethereal, airy element, probably because I'm an airhead and I have so many air in my chart, and I just connect with swords the best, that it was kind of nice to have something that pulls me down to the 3D, to the muddy part of life as well, because I have to live there, you know, not just among in the clouds and just thinking about and daydreaming and making plans. I need something that would tell me that, yeah, you need money for, you know, creating what you want. So this made me open up more to decks that doesn't have that necessary art style, you know, that light and airy feeling, and that, like the Shadowscapes, because it's such a fantasy type of deck. So yeah, that's my explanation, hopefully. And I hope that if you don't do a video, then just at least tell me about your decks, because I'm very, very curious which deck opened you up and why and how to be a different kind of reader, even if you only read for yourself, because that's, I think, still the coolest thing that we're, you know, reading to ourselves, because tarot is such a great way to have communication with yourself. And I always encourage people to pick up a deck if, you know, they seem like interested. But I would like to hear about people, you know, especially with new collections, because why they, you know, open up, and how they branch out in their endeavor. Or, you know, if you're reading tarot for 100 gazillion years because you're a vampire, then please call me, and you have a large collection, and you have to be more mindful about your collection. What are those that are still, you know, surprise you in a way, even though you have so many and you are reading so many ways? Or if you can think back, which deck had a similar purpose. So I hope that this was interesting, and I hope, you know, I can hear from you guys. If not, and you still watch it, then thank you so much, and see you in the next one. Bye.